All right, everyone. Episode 18 now. We've been really, running through the episodes. I'm super excited again for this one. I know I say it every single time because everyone's really different who we bring on. And we have here Freddie Mccurry, who's been in the space for about similar time to myself, just over 3 years. Has been in sales for about 5 years. He was in the car industry initially, hated the idea of selling in the sweltering heat of Arizona. So has then moved into the remote industry, doing all of the things flexibly and things like that. He's been averaging 10 to 15K a month as a setter and has actually hit a high month of 18K. I never got that far in the industry, so I'm even here to learn myself. So I cannot wait to get into this. And so far has produced over 5 million is as far as high ticket revenue as well. So really looking forward to diving into this one. Freddie, I hope that is a solid intro, but let me know if we can kind of go back to the beginning a little bit as far as like how it all started, how you got into this, why we got into this. That'd be a good place for us to start.
Yeah, like you said, I definitely did not want to keep selling cars. I mean, it's a lot of time, right? Nothing on the car industry, nothing on the guys that I worked with. Great sales guys. The issue is, dude, it's hot. You're walking around on your feet. Everybody hates car salesmen, so you're probably going to get berated every day while you're at work. And it just wasn't enough money for the amount of time we were putting in. I mean, we're talking 60, 70-hour weeks, open to closes. So yeah, you're doing a lot of work for not as much money. And then what happened was I had saw a video. It was for Cole Gordon's industry. They were doing their little sales training stuff to get you out and put into the high ticket space. I put an application in. We did that for about a week. Got a call 3 or 4 days later after being in the community. And that's where my current mentor, he kind of cherry picked us out. He said, "You sound good on the phones. Do you want a job? Can you quit today?" And so, yeah, I just quit and we jumped right in.
Absolutely. And like I remember we kind of discussed about this a little bit before, and you made it sound like nonchalantly quit your job, everything's okay. For a lot of people, that's obviously a huge deal.
Yeah.
But like how was that for you realistically? Like was you as calm as how you're seeming right now? Or like how was that for you making that jump?
Yeah, I mean, it was still, obviously you're still nervous. It was a new side of the industry. But at the end of the day, it was sales. So I figured, we're just going to jump in there. I was also making really good money in the car industry as well. So I kind of had that to fall back on. I know a lot of people in this space, they usually don't. When they do jump in, they're usually, reaching to get to that higher level. They're not there yet. And they're probably, one living at home or, they got bills behind, so that kind of stuff. I just didn't have those like monetary stress factors at the time. So
Okay. And that's massive as well for you guys. Like I actually did it the opposite way. I didn't have anything to fall back on. It was very much you just got to make it happen. And I did have to move back with my parents, then eventually transitioned out. So I wouldn't recommend doing it my way. I would definitely recommend having some of that backing. So at least you can be more detached from the outcome when you're on calls in the high ticket world. So absolutely, that's smart. Do what
yeah.
Freddie was doing there. But yeah, I guess talk me through your journey, right? Because what you've been able to accomplish as a setter, it's within the top 0.05% echelons of what setters have been able to accomplish. So if anything, like there's a lot of factors behind that success, but what do you think has been some of like, if we can pick on maybe three things, there's obviously more, but on what's helped you the most with that?
One is finding a good mentor. I mean, there's a lot of noise in the space. And what I mean by a mentor, I definitely mean a manager that actually will do it with you, has been doing it. Because that's what happened when I jumped in. I wasn't just a setter when I jumped in. I jumped in as a closer, moved into setting and closing. And thankfully, my mentor at the time, he knew how to do both. He was doing it with us at the same time. So it was a lot easier to kind of get up to that level quicker. Another thing too is, I mean, people just try to get really, really complicated now in the space. I mean, cold showers here, waking up here, you got to keep this routine. Yeah, it was nothing like that. I mean, it was just like show up, do your work, very simple. Keep your own reports on your own end. We don't really need any reports from the company's end, which a lot of management, they look for, that corporate look for their team. We just kept it really, really simple. I mean, the old saying, keep it simple, stupid, kiss and
Yeah.
sales. I mean, that's all we did. So if you just keep it really simple, your only job is to find money, locate money, and put it on the phone, right? Any clients that are actually willing to jump on the phone with you and get onto that next call, that's all you're worried about. The rest of it comes at the end of the day. So I would say that was the top two. And then the third one is, yeah, you just got to become detached from the outcome. At the end of the day, if you're good at what you do, and you're good at what you do and you keep learning and keep moving forward, I mean, eventually the money's going to come. So a lot of kids get stressed out within the first week or two of not being able to set. Once you actually get to like the point where I'm at and some of the other guys in the industry, eventually you'll be able to jump into any offer and start making sets or closes within the first week. So yeah, you just got to keep going. So those are my three biggest ones.
Yeah, that's massive. And like, I want to really dive into what you mentioned about the keep it simple, stupid, right? Because that's obviously a quote that many of us in sales understand. Sometimes I think I'm doing a good job of that, but hearing what you've been doing, I feel like I'm doing a terrible job and I can keep it even more simple, right? So talk me through what that looks like for you as far as like what you do aim to keep super simple and how you do it. Might be quite a long answer, but it's one that I think we're all very curious to understand.
Yeah, so I think we can definitely dive into that as far as the setting side of things, because I think this is where we're having a big disconnect in the industry right now. Um, it's not going to make sense to a lot of people. It might. It's hard to train because again, it's just a conversation basis, right? Like, you know, a lot of us go to the bars, we go out, we talk to people. That's honestly how you should really keep your set calls. I mean, it depends on the industry, obviously, depends on who you're working for. Some of them are going to be a little bit more professional, some of them are going to be a little bit more laid back, but you could still keep it conversation like with your clients. So keeping it simple would be, you know, I'm not going to go in and sit here and berate you for 15 minutes and find out how much you got in your savings, how much you got in, you know, that's not for me to determine. Your finances, I just need to know if you have a full-time job. If you do have a full-time job and we have financing options, then I know you possibly could have the ability to close. Now you're not destitute, you know, you can usually pick that up in a conversation with somebody after just getting them to drop their guard. They'll usually tell you a couple tidbits that you got to keep in mind while you're talking to them. Okay, he said this, maybe I should touch on it a little more. But if they never touch on it, they have a full-time job, you know that, you know, they're interested in your product. Your job as a setter is to get them onto the closer's phone, right? If we're cherry picking and that's what your manager wants, I mean, you're going to run into the issue of your closer not having a lot of ammo on his plate unless you're screening them through even type forms. But again, I was always told buyers are liars. And when I fill out information online, I'm not putting the right information in. So you still have to have that screening call with a setter. So I think a lot of setters just dive too deep with their clients. They try to be too smart on the phone. And at the end of the day, we know you're smart. But if your client doesn't have something to be desired on that next call, they're not going to show up. So your job is to keep it 5 to 6 minutes. I ask a couple quick questions, make sure you're a right fit for the company from my perspective, and then you go over to the closer. The closer is just going to be, you know, your coach, your closer, whatever you call him. He's just going to be happy that he has something on the calendar and you set it to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be the most qualified. It just has to have a chance of closing, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why I'm saying we keep it very simple.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's something that I've had to stress with a lot of setters I'm training now. Is like you don't need to have 100% certainty that they're going to close. Even like alongside the 50-50 pendulum, make sure it's at least above that 50, 60%
Yeah,
margin, right?
exactly.
At least is there a chance? Because the closers are not miracle workers, but the fact that there is a chance of a close, that's an opportunity still that we can put on the board. So I totally agree with that. And there's kind of it's kind of a two-part question. The first thing is like you mentioned about what you see as the right fit for someone
Yeah.
to be on the closer's calendar. What are those factors? And the other thing is the show ups, right? As far as like what determines a show up. So we'll start with the first part.
Yeah. So as far as the right fit goes, again, it depends on the offer. Usually what my right fit is you have a full-time job. So that means you have income or you have access to income coming through, right? So that's the first check mark. Usually I'll ask one or two questions after that, but it's not going to be about your income. I'm just going to ask you, how do you feel about your income? And then usually I'll lead into, well, how much do you actually need to replace your current income to move into this full time, right? Because usually I work biz op, we work training. So usually the training or the biz op, they're going to go one or two ways. They're either going to get something done for them or they're going to go this way and they're going to learn how to do something full time while they're making money from it. So those are going to be just my financial questions. And if they check all three of those boxes for me on that call right there, we're good. The next is, how long have you been? Are you brand new to this? Do we need to nurture it for 1 to 2 weeks? Do you need to figure out who we are? Or have you been following us for a little while? If you've been following us for a little while, boom, that's the second one. And then the third one is just the willingness to show up on the scheduled call. Do I feel like this person is just fishing for information? And again, that comes from experience. You can't always determine if somebody's fishing or if they're just asking a lot of questions because they're nervous to get on to the next stage, right? So just determining whether you're fishing, whether you're a client, if I can't determine it regardless, I'll still throw you on. So those are my 3 check marks just to get you over to the next person. Because we don't discriminate. As a sales guy, you shouldn't discriminate because we have a lot of that happening in every sales industry, right? Oh, you work as a garbage truck man. So you probably don't have enough money. Well, no, I learned a long time ago that there's a lot of people that have mattress money sitting around. And I've been yelled at by my mentor plenty of times in the last 3 years for allowing somebody to slip through the cracks. So again, that's why I keep that criteria very, very, very simple. Unless you say something on the call that makes me kind of second guess what you're saying, I won't usually dive too deep on that side.
For sure, yeah. And so from what I can see, you've clearly tuned your radar quite a lot. It is through, once again, doing the reps, taking the calls, like all of the work ethic type of stuff, that of course. And so like what do you think has helped you to tune that radar the most as far as understanding, right, like this person's got a chance, this person doesn't? Like what type of language are you trying to understand or hear? I am getting into complexities and specifics, but I think the guys want to know this. Right. So just from your experience there.
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, hitting it on the head, it is reps. You have to talk to tons of people. And thankfully I had this experience before I moved into the high ticket space, talking to tons of people. Now in the high ticket space, it's a lot different criteria for those people coming onto your phones. So I think it's really just the reps. I did a lot of reps with a lot of people. I've messed up a lot. I still mess up to this day just because we've been doing it for so long, right? The show rate's there, the performance is still there, but I do make mistakes and pass people off sometimes that shouldn't probably be on the phone. But yeah, the reps are going to help you tune your radar. And then the feedback from like I said, if you have a good mentor or a good coach that you can follow, they should be giving you feedback on each person. And you just don't beat yourself up. You keep the same criteria. You just learn to listen a little bit better to what that person is saying, right? So if somebody, is beating their chest saying they have all of this money, then you can hit them back and say, well, that's awesome that you have all this money. Why are you even looking into this in the first place then? Right? And then you wait for a hesitation or something. Like that's just one example. You wait to see what they hit you back with, right? Because a lot of people that don't have money, they talk a lot, right? So yeah, it's just little things like that that you'll pick up on over time. You're not going to get it within the first month or two. So the best thing to do is just to really just keep your process super simple and just keep putting as many people on the calendars as you can. And then just getting that feedback or asking for it. If they're not giving it back to you and they're just complaining in their sales chats, just privately message one of your closers and say, hey, I'm going to set for you, can you please just give me feedback on each person? And if they want better sets, they'll give you better feedback.
Oh yeah, closers are not shy with feedback. That's what I've learned for sure. Being a setter and coaching the setters for sure. But no, that's awesome. I want, if you guys could pay attention to Freddie's observations here, it's very clear that he's been able to take so many calls that he can identify patterns. So for you guys that are looking for like that magic bullet or whatever it is that's going to get you to maximize show up rate, set to close rate, sometimes it is just putting in the hard yards and being patient with the results as well. Oftentimes, it's like Freddie has said, he's got so much feedback from his mentors, from closers, that helps to really shorten the learning curve. So make sure that you are working under a mentor or a coach that you resonate with, obviously cares about you, because we don't see too much of that nowadays in the space, unfortunately. But also just has those skills that you want to kind of aspire to have as well. So that's absolutely massive. And then, yeah, the second part of the question was the show up rates as well. So like, as far as the show up rate, what would you say is optimal for a setter nowadays in the industry with the changes? And
Yeah.
then what helps you to optimize it, I guess?
So that's a hard one, dude, because we have a very hard cut for hours. We have a high bar. We want 80% or better. I usually ride between the 90% to 100%. Right now, this month we're at 100%. Last month, 95. So optimal, if you really, really want to make good money and you want to hit that next echelon as a setter, I would say 80 or better. Because if 8 out of 10 of your calls are coming in, you have a half show. Like if you have a show rate of 8 out of 10, so you're 80%, and then half of those are pitchable, and then half of them buy. I mean, you still have 2 closes per day that are under your belt. So that's minimal. Usually, I mean, even with the close rates, you can't control those, so we don't focus on them. But yeah, if you want to optimize as a setter, I would say 80%. And we're not seeing a lot of that either right now. Because again, people are talking themselves out of deals. Closers and setters both talk themselves out of show rates and deals. and it's their fault. You have to sit down and you have to really digest, like, hey, I'm the one causing these people not to show up. Sometimes things happen, you can't control that, but that's why we're setting that bar at 80% or better.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Like I've never come across a set that's ever hit anything above 80%. Like I was able to hit like between 70 and 80, but getting 80 plus, like that's tough. Like that's really tough. So what is it that you've done, especially post the end of your call is going to be super crucial, but even throughout that's helped you to get that show up rate beyond that point, and even I suppose beyond the setting call too, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's really just leaving something to be desired on the next call. And again, that leads back to setters talking themselves out of deals, right? They give too much information. They scare people when they get on. There's a lot of, I just ran across one recently, and nothing bad on anybody that actually uses this script. I'm a huge advocate for not using the scripts at all, right? You have your 3 bullet points. These are the check marks I need to do. So the scripts nowadays, they just dive way too deep, and you scare a lot of people doing that, right? You need to keep it super short. You need to make something desired on the next call. A biggest one you guys probably have issues with, or people that you come across and you train now that have issues with, is the pricing objection. That one alone is probably one of the easiest ones to get over. Okay, yeah, I understand, Mr. Customer, that you want the prices, and I'd love to get you to the right person that will be able to answer those for you. Unfortunately, I am just one of the advisement team's assistants here. So I don't have that information readily available. We do range from free material all the way up to paid material. So what we can do is I'll go ahead and write that down. That's going to be one of your top questions that you're going to have on your next call. That way your coach or advisor will address that, right? So you're acknowledging what they're saying, but you're not giving them the answer. You're giving them a answer, and it's a good answer because, again, you're just an assistant. You're new. And I think a lot of setters, they want to be closers. They aspire to be closers, so they don't know how to shut that off. They want to be the person with all the answers, just like the closer. I don't want to be the person with all the answers. I want you to go to the person with all of the answers. So that way your show rate, you're actually going to show up to that call. Because if you don't leave anything to be desired, they're not going to show up to the call. You just dropped your percentages down another 10 to 20%. And I had to learn that the hard way. I was giving way too much in my first year, and they just were not, like, I'm talking 40 to 50% show rate. And I was beating my head against the wall, like, what the heck is going on here, bro? So yeah, I think a lot of setters just need to leave something to be desired on the next call for them to show rate to go up. And it has to be exciting. Everybody sounds very monotone nowadays when they get on these set calls. And it's like, if I'm meeting the assistant of a doctor's office, how many times have you walked in to a real estate office or a doctor's office and the assistant at the front desk is anything but nice? Right? I hate to say it, it sounds like woo-woo or whatever words they use. But again, you're the first face that they're getting to talk to when they come into the company. You're not the one going to be asking the hard questions. So you need to make it very exciting. You need to leave something for the next call. And then that way they actually show up to that call already excited. There's no bad taste in their mouth. They're not hesitant. So that gives the closer a better opportunity to dive into them a little bit quicker. So that's how I've gotten my show rate up.
That's awesome. Like, I'm taking learnings from this as well. I think the main takeaway for me is less is more, right? And it's being able to go into things that aren't always relevant, but it's going into not like a script where you have to follow each of the word tracks and things like that, but it's just checkpoints, things that you must cover for you to have that certainty that that person can be put through to a closer. Not that they can close, but they just have a chance, right? Absolutely. And this can be set. So that's amazing. And there was a question I had, because you've had opportunities to go into closing, like go into that like plenty of times, and yet you're still setting now. I'm curious, why are you still setting? Because a lot of people want to use this as a right? But
yeah, so I know a lot of people out there are not going to like this answer because everybody likes growth. I'm lazy. Salespeople are lazy, and I found a way to make money off of good closers. And if my closers are all good, I have more shots during the week to actually make money. Now, if I need to close, my first week at Christian Jack's offer that he's managing. When I came in with him, and we've been friends for a long time, actually the first week, I closed a deal. The guy didn't want to go on. So I have the ability to close. It's not that I don't want to close or I don't have the ability to. I just find that it's a little bit more efficient of my time use if I go ahead and set for a bunch of guys that are good at closing. I have more chances. Closers have to rely on themselves. So let's say you're having a bad week. and you didn't do too hot that week, you didn't make any money. Well, as a setter, I don't have that issue because just because you're having a bad week doesn't mean the other four guys on the team are having a bad week. And if I'm setting all of you pretty efficiently throughout the week and I'm giving you all 5 to 6 to 10 sets a day, then I know that I'm at least going to make money at the end of the week. So that's what's kept my revenue pretty average, right? Like high end 18, low end 10. So that's why I'm able to ride in that middle area, but it's still 5 figures a month. So yeah, I just found a way to go around it. And again, I'll be very honest with it. I'm lazy. So I don't want to sit there and talk to somebody for 45 minutes. I'd rather have somebody else do it for me.
Totally fair. Totally fair. And I love that because oftentimes people think of being a setter and they think that's like the grunt work where you have to do all the activity. There's like so much to do and it's like really hard and gritty and there's no leverage. I would argue opposite. I think as a setter, you have so much leverage. Like when I was at 7th level, I would get closers bidding and paying me extra commissions for my leads just because they were hotter and they knew that they were going to close sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, and if you get a stack of great closers that are working on the offer, you don't just have to put all of them to one person. You can spread them across different people because closers are human beings. Sometimes they have bad weeks and bad months. You can just spread it across. And so as a setter, you have way more leverage and power than you actually think. It's just about being able to, first of all, have a really solid offer. Don't be part of an offer where the closers are trash and the lead flow is not there for you to abundantly, commission percentages as well to obviously hit your income goals. But being part of a really solid offer and being able to do that is absolutely everything. So I couldn't agree more. And just another thing I'm thinking, just to top it off, is actually finding some solid offers. Like what's helped you alongside connections you've had from previous, like to help you get into solid offers and
Yeah.
and build the reputation that you have now, because that's valuable for setters as well.
Yeah, so this is where we kind of defer. I stuck with my mentor. I don't leave my mentor. I don't leave that team because this is probably another opinion I have that many people haven't really thought of, but if you're a closer, you probably should do this and find out how to do this soon. You need to find a group of closers, one or two, that you follow that are good at what they do. That way you always have job security because as long as they have a job, you have a job. Because most closers, if they're worth their metal and they're actually good at what they do, they can actually make requests at their offers to bring their own setters. That's where I have been able to actually find my jobs. This is another thing that I don't do as much. I don't network as much. I'm usually more silent. I don't like social media. And my social media I usually use for my outings, right? Any music festivals we go to, family events, things like that. I usually don't post my stuff online. However, Christian Jack, very good at networking. And again, I'm a friend with him. So if somebody needs a good setter or if they need a good setter manager candidate, usually I'll reach out to him. So my advice to any setters out there is, yeah, you wanna definitely interview your offer first to see how good it is. You want to be able to talk to the other people. A lot of owners won't let you do that. But some will. So if they won't let you do that and talk to the current employees and things like that, then I would kind of pull back a little bit, just make sure you do a little bit more digging with them. But if they do allow you to talk to those closers and setters and see how things are really going, I mean, ask for numbers, ask how much the lead flow is. Don't be scared just because you want the job to ask those hard questions to those guys. Network your way up. I'm not a networker. You might be. I know Christian Jack, he's networked his way into some crazy stuff. He's got a lot of good connections. You can do it that way, or you can do what I did and find some crazy dudes in the industry that make tons of money and just stick with them and set with them at their criteria level.
Yeah. So I like what you've done. You focus more on quality and focus more on like closer connections rather than like other setters in the space or like even off-roaders. But that's a really good idea for a lot of you out there just to think outside the box, is look at some closers who are making really solid money, performing. Like they're going to be on offers that are allowing for that performance. So best believe the setters are going to have just as much opportunity as well. So that's major, guys. Absolutely massive. Well, Freddie, I really appreciate everything. We've got a hard stop here, unfortunately, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. And yeah, something a little bit different as far as perspectives, guys. So if you've enjoyed it, obviously comment your takeaways from what you've learned from Freddie, share the video because to be fair, appointment setting doesn't get as much of the reality marketing that it needs. I think we need to kind of share realities of how it is. And then, yeah, of course, we'll be on to the next episode. So really appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, take
Thank
care.
you.
Cheers, man.